What up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Basically, I was going to do a video talking about last night's debut of its new show, WWE Ride Along. First thoughts, the show wasn't good. I mean, that's too harsh. The show wasn't great. I mean, it was good. It just wasn't really where I thought it was going to be. I really thought they were going to film two guys driving in the car, going from one spot to the other. In this show, basically, it was after TLC, driving to Monday Night Raw. They were leaving Boston and driving to Philadelphia, which I believe they were saying on their GPS was a 3 to 4 hour drive. I thought they were really going to focus on one car. On this episode, they focused on two cars. One car was the New Day, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, and Biggie Langston. And in the other car was Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. Two guys from Chicago. I apologize, I fucked that up. Two guys from Cleveland in the Ohio district. And the New Day all sort of coming together as a new team and really getting over in the last year. And honestly, if you think about it, a half-hour show, a 3-hour drive, and you only get 15 minutes of it. You don't really get that much. I know you really can't have guys in their cars complaining about, WWE sucks and Monday Night Raw is not as good as it should be, and maybe if they paired up this guy and the other guy, you might be able to really strike a match. Or if you really talk about somebody's gimmick or talk about something on the show that really was good. I know that that we're a month out from TLC, it's kind of backtracking, but a lot of wrestling fans are going to watch Ride Along are going to remember a month ago to TLC and Monday Night Raw and maybe talk about, what Stone Cold Steve Austin says is basically guys used to get into cars, you'd have long road trips, you go and you buy some beers, you ice them down, and you'd rebook the territory, basically saying, if this guy was on top, we'd be making more money because there'd be more fans buying tickets, and fans buying tickets means that there's more money for the boys in the back, and that's what they did. We didn't really get that, in Dolph Ziggler and the Miz's car. Basically, they talked about, going to Cleveland Indian games growing up, and basically used to buy tickets for $2 and used to be able to go all the way down to the front row because for some reason the Cleveland Indians had a stadium that held 80,000 fans. And they didn't have 80,000 fans to show up. If you think about when Dolph Ziggler and The Miz were kids, that'd be around the time of Major League. And I know the Indians did get good in the late 90s, having some good teams that, went to the World Series against the Atlanta Braves. I guess that would be 1995, so that would be the mid-90s. And then they had another team, I believe they went to the World Series in 98, which would be against the Marlins. They never were able to get the job done. But if you think about those teams in the early 90s, it'd be around the time of that Major League movie, and that really was the Cleveland Indians, not the real players, but I mean that's about what it was like being a Cleveland Indians fan. And they talked about going down, and the Indians' second baseman was Mark Lewis. He always was a nice guy, would sign autographs for Ziggler and for The Miz as kids, and it made them glad to be Indians fans. It reminded me a lot of Mark Lemke, being a Braves fan, who him and Jeff Blauser were probably the easiest Braves to meet as kids. The second baseman and the shortstop. Even though the Braves went to the World Series and they won the division a bunch of times, Jeff Blauser and Mark Lemke never got big heads and knew that kids being at the games meant that they'd come again because they got to meet a Braves player, and not any player, not the guy on the back of the bench, not the guy who caught in the bullpen, the guy that played every day, and that meant a lot. Kids like me meeting them, you remember that for the rest of your life. And besides for that, they told stories about what it was like. The Miz talked about, going to WrestleMania, looking out in the front row, and there was 10 of his friends that basically they grew up watching Raw, they grew up watching Nitro, they watched the pay-per-views together, and he looked at him and like, look, we made it. I mean, it was him. He busted his ass. He did the indies. He did developmental. He did what he had to do to make it to the top. And they were at WrestleMania, and it was because of his friends being wrestling fans. That's what got him to the top. And they talked about Ziggler cashing in. He says that's basically like a high that he's been chasing ever since. When he cashed in the night after WrestleMania 29, winning the championship. I love actually looking at Biggie Langston's face as they're counting the 3. He is ecstatic for his buddy Ziggler there. It's almost like he's looking like that's going to be me someday. And I really believe that Biggie's going to put that together and he's going to get there. But you know, they stop off, they get coffee midway, and then they drive the rest of the way. The New Day, you know, they're fighting. It's a lot like their table for 3 when they're talking about, you know, ribbing each other in the car. Biggie Langston sitting in the back seat. He said this is too hot. He's starting to sweat. He's complaining about them turning up the heat in the front. They told that story about Biggie Langston was driving and Xavier Woods was in the back, and he found out that the SUV had radio controls, and he would turn the music up full blast on Biggie Langston, and they were trying to convince Biggie that it was because his hands were too big on the steering wheel. That's what was making the radio go up. So he was trying to drive, barely touching the steering wheel and things like that. But you know, they didn't really have a bunch to say. They stopped off to eat in a place in Boston that Kofi said he used to go to when he was in college, and he said that they were going to go inside. You know, Xavier Woods and Biggie Langston both wanted to go to Wendy's, but he basically said that that wasn't going to happen because he was saying that Wendy's was going to be closed. They were trying to play up the fact that Kofi Kingston was old. Basically, they were saying there was a generational gap between them. Kofi wanted to go in. He wanted them to be quiet and be respectful because this is the place that he had a lot of memories eating at during college. And Biggie and Xavier weren't having none of that. You know, they still were bitching that they wanted to go to Wendy's. And, you know, like I said, that's the show. And I hope that when they get down to it, I hope we see guys and they focus just on one car the whole way there. However, we're going to be going. But we'll see what happens down the road with more episodes. But hopefully this is going to be on every week after Raw, and it's not just going to be hit or miss like rivalries. You know, do it like you did it with Monday Night War, where it was bam. You knew every night, this night, I think it was Tuesdays for Monday Night War, it's going to be on. Check it out on demand or at a certain time. Don't be like a show this week, a show 3 weeks, and another show like a month after that. Just keep going in order. Bam, bam, bam.